Hey guys, Mark Stein with creditpathway.com speaking with Roberto Monaco of Influenceology.com. Welcome, Roberto.
What's up, buddy? How's it going?
You're good. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Excited to be here.
Nice. Well, we met Roberto about 8 years ago when he was starting his company, Influenceology. And as you can see, it's become quite a success. 300 plus videos, quite a few interviews, this being one of them, and tons of speaking events later, and here we are.
And I'm excited, man, to be here. It's been a long journey, a fun journey, and I'm very grateful to be able to create an impact. So.
Nice. Well, so one thing we want to really focus on in this call is influence of self. And we want to start off with talking about how to better influence yourself, because of course, if you can't influence yourself, you cannot better impact your viewers. So what, and this is definitely something I struggle with, and people that watch, these videos, and I wasn't even able to do public speaking. And I still am a little bit nervous when I first get going. And I know I'm going to move past it, but certainly I'm a lot better than where I began. But what tips and what strategies can someone better take control first and foremost of their nervousness and even someone that's terrified, and of course people go and spend a lot of money with psychologists and therapists and trainers to get over the fear of speaking. What can someone do to better take control of this aspect of influence? Okay,
so the first thing that if you're listening to us right now, you have to understand that it's not your fear. It's not, don't take it personally, because a lot of people, Mark, they experience this fear of speaking, and they see someone else, maybe their friend, maybe coworker, that's speaking very effectively, and they go, wow, that person doesn't have it, I have it, therefore there's something wrong with me. And the moment they go in their route, there's something wrong with me, and now, man, now becomes a problem, becomes their mind's a disease, and now they're locked in the identity that there's something wrong with them. You see, 75% of Americans experience some type of speaking anxiety. So the truth is that most people, everybody is maybe a strong word, but the majority of people do experience that, maybe that fear, maybe that uncertainty, maybe that doubt, maybe the anxiety. So start with that principle. And the reason you experience is because your body is trying to protect yourself. There's all there is to it. Because when you have a new audience, you have an uncertain situation, and your body is signaling you to say, hey, just get prepared. So it's not like there's a defect in you. It's just your body telling you, just go prepare. Right? So you gotta have understanding that it's not something that happened to you, or it's not something that you have a problem with. That is the nature. Your physiology, that's your psychology. That's like, hey, when we were cavemen and you walk in the wild and you see a dinosaur and you're by yourself, you don't have a gun, either you're gonna fight, you're gonna freeze, you're gonna flight, right? And when you're by yourself, there's no place to hide. You see your audience, you're watching your audience, but your brain's going dinosaur, dinosaur, dinosaur. So that's why it's just, hey, get ready. So once you understand that, don't personalize. Now, some strategies, there's so many strategies that you can do to help overcome the fear. I feel like number one, and this is the oldest one, I didn't create that one, but preparation is key. Because, and people, come on, Roberto, we're going to talk about preparation. It's like, look, every successful, I've done 4,000 plus talks, every successful people, you got to prepare. And the more you prepare and rehearse your talk, the more you know about your audience, the more you prepare, the more confidence you have. Because fear does not creep in a body full of certainty or confidence. So when I'm confident that I know you, I'm confident that I know your outcomes, I'm confident that I can help, I'm confident that I know what I'm going to say, then eventually fear dissipates. That's one thing, preparation. The second thing is super powerful, okay? And this is like, I hope that if you want to get one thing today, get this and you're good. Is that every time you communicate and you're speaking, your goal is always to move the audience from point A to point B. Point A, for example, in your realm, a business owner may need money, right? Point B, work with you guys. Now we have a line of credit. so they can develop business. So in my realm, let's say someone is afraid to communicate. Point B now is a confident presenter. So once you understand that every time you speak is always about moving someone from point A to point B, we realize that every communication, every video, every conversation, it has nothing to do with us, has to do with the audience. So it's almost like this. Imagine my phone here were like a spotlight, and I'm like focusing the light on my face, right? Or maybe my hand's a better prop here. So imagine I have a light in my face, and that's how most people operate. They go, how do I look? How do I sound? Am I being judged right now? Do they like me? I'm gonna say the wrong word or the right word. All this conversation. And once you change the spotlight on the audience, the light's not, it is really literally on them, then there is no reason to have that fear or uncertainty, because all you're doing, every question, every story, every analogy, every statistics, every piece of advice is about moving the audience from point A to point B. And once you really get this, I know like logically, some people are like, okay, I understand, Roberto, but when you feel this way and you just try to move people from point A to point B, that helps people a lot, right? About eliminating the fear, the uncertainty, anxiety. And the third little tip that I give is this: breathing. So one of the things that I do, I go in and I inhale 5, hold 5, exhale 5, because breathing calms you down. Some yoga practitioners might be thinking, yeah, that's right, it does. So I go like this. Sometimes I'm sitting down and I'm about to speak, right, and I'm all suited up, and people are like, someone's introducing me, I'm like, then I hold it, then I go, and I do this like 4 or 5 times real quick. All of a sudden I'm calm. And then I'm calm, they introduce me, and I look at the audience, and I connect the person, and I know, because I'm prepared, and I'm there to move them from point A to point B, I really don't experience that fear anymore. For me, it's more like a purpose, energy. I cannot wait to go out and share my message. That's the idea.
Yeah, I think that's important to keep in mind and certainly I'm no stranger to this, is you have so much going through your head that and you want to just get it out, especially if you're the chihuahua type of salesman like me, and you're ready to jump. And I think just slowing things down is a great tip for, and again, something that should come to us naturally. Mm-hmm. And this idea of just getting centered and bringing and breathing, because of course we forget to breathe. So
we really do. And you know like what? So you said something that one-on-one communication for most of us comes to us naturally. Speaking to groups doesn't, because some elements, they are the same,
right?
But some elements are not the same. For example, pausing. When a one-on-one conversation, if you ask my question, I pause, you might be like, man, either Roberto doesn't know the answer, maybe he forgot about it, I was going to say. So a lot of people in a one-on-one conversation, we don't like to pause. Then you use filler words. Now, when we go into the realm of one-to-many communication, pause is one of the most effective yet simple influence strategies, because you can control the emotion of the room just by pausing. It's insane. But most presenters, they feel uncomfortable, right? So when a lot of people like, why they assume that it's just natural moving from one-on-one realm to the group, and there are some things that you have to do to make that transition effectively. Like, for example, for me, I've done 4,000 talks, right? Public speaking engagements. And when I start doing video marketing, my first 20 videos, man, they were terrible. I'm not saying that they're awesome now, but they were terrible. I'm like, terrible. And the reason they're terrible, number one, is because I didn't know how to have this energy with the camera. And number two, I every video were like 20 minutes because I was used to speak in public. So I have time. In video marketing, you have to speak, 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes. It's gotta be fast. So there's a transition. So when you change to the different path or communication path, like one-on-one, one-to-many, public speaking, webinars, videos, there are some distinctions that you have to learn. So,
I'm hearing you say one more thing I think is very relevant. It's and people probably caught it. I screwed up your name when we first started this. I'm sure you did as well. Because I had so many thoughts going in my head and I got tongue-tied, which I do. And I could have said, oh shit, stop and let's restart. But I think you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, just keep going. It's not that big a deal. And I've known you for 8 years, yes. And I got your name wrong.
The mistakes. Well, I do this class in San Diego, Mark, about public speaking, presentation, influence. And one of the things that I have people do is to fill out this questionnaire so I can get to know them really well so they can deliver the content. And one time, this gentleman wrote this. I'm afraid to speak because if I say the wrong word, my career is over.
Right.
So, and I know he was a real estate agent at the time.
Or
and I know for a fact, man, that one word will not gonna kill your career. It's like, but I just felt the pressure of someone carrying that rule right in their head. Let me give another example here. I worked with a guy. He was working technology, and he wants to do like presentations for CEOs and groups like that. And I was super afraid. And another angle to approach fear is that everybody has a rule, unconscious rule about fear of rejection or fear of failure. Everybody has. You think, no, I don't have, Roberto. Say, you do have, you don't know. Right? We all have it. And so I started doing a lot of questions and doing my process. And I asked this question, what has to happen for you to feel rejected? And his unconscious rule, by the way, he never wrote it down, right? It's like unconscious. He said, well, every time I walk in a room and someone look at me weird, when they do that, I feel rejected. And I'm like, can you say again? He goes like, yeah. Every time I walk in a room and someone look at me weird, I feel rejected. And I'm like, how often that's going to happen? What do you think? Every single time. And then obviously we changed this rule. We expand his rule. So now he doesn't have to feel rejected anymore. So the question is, if you're afraid, ask yourself, what has to happen for you to feel, afraid or rejected, or because you have an unconscious rule and the only person who can change the rule is you, So when you make mistakes, if you want to have fun, go watch some influencology videos. I promise you, man, you're going to find a lot of mistakes there on them. Lots of them.
Yeah. I'm reminded of something my stepdad always says. He talks about the difference between the 95 and 100 is exponential, and probably such a big gap that you'll never realize. But so many people are stuck in this mindset of, well, it's got to be perfect before I get it out. And evidence by your explanation of your videos that came out at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just don't get started. And it's like, and I think of the first time I spoke and I felt like I was going to die. And of course I didn't. And I probably squeaked out because I was so tense, squeaked something out at the first couple notes, but I kept going. And the important thing is that you made the effort. And,
the thing, if there's the best advice I can give you to anybody is to say yes to presentation opportunities.
Yeah.
Right? If you're gonna write down, I'm gonna say yes to presentation opportunities. I can give you 1,000 examples. I'll give you 2 that happens last week. So my beautiful wife, she just started her career as a nutritionist. Right? She used to work on fashion, got a fashion degree, and wants to help people. And opportunities came up for her to do a talk with our lovely chiropractor, which you love, and speak for 20 minutes. And she could have a bunch of reasons why not to do it. Well, I'm just starting out my business. I've been doing this for X amount. So we have all this conversation, but she stood up, said, no, I'm going to do it. And she spoke for 20 minutes, walk away with 8 clients. Who does that? You know? And because the reward of stepping up. You see, Mark, I don't believe in shortcut success. I really don't. But if there is one thing that's going to speed up the process, would be to communicate to groups, because most people, they don't want to get the camera record. Most people don't want to show up at the interview. Most people, they don't want to book up a talk. Most people they don't believe that, hey man, they don't want to call companies prospect to get a talk, because they deeply don't believe that. And if you, and that alone eliminate your competition. So, and then if you work a little bit to try to prove your game, then it's super powerful.
Yeah, I think that's all relevant points, and it's just a matter. I mean, you can probably identify with this. You know, we're a nation of immigrants, and can you imagine if you said, well, I have an accent, and I mean, you speak, but I mean, can you imagine if you said, well, I'm going to use that as an excuse? But you know, look at all the videos and content that would never have found its way out there and touched people. So,
and it's cool because this year I've done stuff, you know, obviously I pretty much spoke in almost every single state in America, you know, Mexico, Brazil. This year I went twice to Canada to speak, and Puerto Rico, and I'm looking like, man, all these opportunities show up because I decided to say yes to my first talk, you know. It's fascinating. Whatever, 8 years later. So I'll tell you, there's a story about that. You watch UFC at all or no?
A little bit. I'm not the biggest fan.
And there's a big show that happens, you know, where they had, you know, the Ultimate Fighter years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had basically, for those who don't know what Ultimate Fighter is, they have two coaches.
Right.
Select teams, and they go to a house and they fight against each other, and the winners go to TV and they fight for a contract. And years ago, there's two teams. One coach select the number one guy who beats in the trials everybody, and the other coach select was last pick. He select this guy, and now they all went to this house. Now the number one pick, Uriah's this guy, had 3 fights. He sent his 3 opponents to the hospital live on TV. I mean, he was that good. The other guy, last pick, Calvin, and he fought 3 times, and everybody's like, man, he's kind of like chubby, kind of short, too young, kind of slow. He's not going to win. He won first fight, second, third fight. Nobody could believe it. I'm watching this. I'm like, how is he beating everybody? Now, they go to the final. This guy was a stud, right? And that's the guy that was the last pick, barely won. And everybody, you could ask anybody, who's going to win? Everybody's like, man, Uriah's going to kill this guy, right? So they go to on TV. Obviously, Calvin win the fight. And everybody was so blown away. How did he do that? Was kind of a smaller guy, not strong, not fast. And they interviewed the coach, Chael Sonnen, at that time. And they said, Chael, how come your guy won? And Chael said, my guy was not the strongest, was not the fastest, didn't have the best boxing, didn't have the best jiu-jitsu, didn't have the best grappling. Right? He was just the most effective. And that's the speaking. Because speaking, you don't need 20 years of experience. You don't need a PhD. You don't need a BA. Tony Robbins has a high school degree. Right? Think about that. Yeah. All you need is show up in a room and be what? The most effective. And you can be the most effective when you choose to speak and you choose to train. That's it. How cool is that? How cool is that? And I try to communicate this message to people that you have to be able to use communication as a competitive tool, because you try to compete on price, in branding, in websites. But most of us, we forgot that communication, right, is the easiest way to communicate, to compete. I'm sorry, to compete. So,
yeah. Yeah, I think just to wrap up that whole it was a long one question, but I think very valuable. I think a very valuable one is just, guys, you're never gonna well, I hope you do, but if your goal is to get rid of nervous energy, maybe only 95% goes away, and that's all right.
Yeah,
And
that's right. 100%.
you know,
Look, after 4,000 plus talks, I feel a little energy. I did a talk the other day. There's like 3,000 people. Right before the stage, I'm like, man, I'm feeling a little something, and it's good. I just welcome, and I'm like, come on, that's my body telling me get ready. So I'm ready. Let's go. Right, let's go. So, and it's kind of like you actually you don't want to not feel anything. You want to have the edge, that little extra adrenaline, because going back to my analogy here, when you caveman, you see the tiger, you need the extra adrenaline for your muscles, for you to run faster, punch faster, to fight. And you're speaking, you want to have this extra energy to be able to live a world-class talk.
Right.
There's a quote saying from, I think was Aristotle, either Aristotle or Cicero, that said that public speaking is the father of eloquence. Eloquence, another word for influence. And I really thought about that, Mike. Why is that? And because in a one-on-one scenario, in a one-on-one presentation or a video presentation, it's really hard for you to create this crazy energy. Remember, this energy. Now, I don't know if you've been to an event where the speaker is really awesome, he or she delivering world-class content, and becomes like raise the energy of the room. Have you noticed that? That's eloquence. And the only able to do that is that when you're doing public speaking. So for those friends here that are listening to us, that if you are afraid, or if you were afraid, or just schedule one talk and you do it. And I promise you is that public speaking goes beyond speaking. It's about leadership, and the act of doing it, one talk, is going to liberate you as a person. So beyond the benefit of branding or getting more clients, it's really psychologically expands who you are.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a huge point of differentiation between it. Just the doing and moving past your comfort zone makes you already in the 1%. So let's talk about beliefs, attitudes. Something I still remember, and the last couple of days I've had a stomach flu, so I had to get myself up to do this, and we're not always at our best. And I remember, I did a coaching call with you back when we first met 8 years ago, and you were talking about the process of psyching yourself up and getting yourself ready, almost like a rehearsal or a pre-rehearsal for speaking. Can we go into that?
Yeah, of course. So when I'm about to speak, do a presentation, I have a process that I do where allows me to go into this really resourceful, powerful state of mind, so that I'm very consistent with my message. Just like, I love the NBA. I'm watching the finals now, and if you watch they have their routine. They go in the morning, they practice, and then they go back an hour before the game. They have this routine that they do. If you watch Curry on YouTube, has this crazy routine that he does. Right? It's not like he's doing a routine to get better at that moment before the game, but just to put himself in that powerful mindset. And as a speaker communicator, you got to put yourself in the mindset. So there's a lot of things that I do. So I want to share some of the things that I do. The first thing that I do is that I believe I have this triangle, and my 3 core emotions that I go through. First one is certainty. So because I know fear does not creep in a body full of certainty. I know I'm certain, confident that I can help this audience. And I want to show up as as someone who as a leader who's about to move them from point A to point B. Right? So I put myself in this crazy state of certainty. And how do I do that? I do a lot of anchoring. From neurolinguistic programming, I put myself in this mindset. I remember a time in my life when I felt super confident, and I see myself being confident. I hear the voices, I feel, I start breathing and move my body as I bring the image back in my mind, and I literally start having goosebumps. I mean, for real. And if you've done any NLP work, it's just crazy. So I do that. And then the second thing that I do, I listen to a couple of motivational videos that I have in my playlist. So I listen to that. And then I do incantations. I do incantations super out loud. Incantations is the things that you say with emotion. And I do a couple of Tony Robbins ones that I used to work for Tony. I do that. I do a couple ones that I do for that I develop for the years. So I put myself in this really powerful state of certainty. So once I'm there, and I never stop when I'm like say from 0 to 10. By the way, I do a lot of speaking. Last week I went to Toronto for 2 days. I left Wednesday morning, went to Toronto, Canada. I spoke Thursday, Friday. I left Friday 2 o'clock, went to Denver, arrived in Denver midnight. Then Saturday spoke in Denver, came back on Sunday. Monday went to Vegas to speak on Vegas. So sometimes you're just physically tired. I'm like, dude, I cannot do this anymore. I'm physically, but then I go in that state of certainty. The second thing that I do, I go in the state of empathy, because I feel like empathy is to really be able to understand where the audience is right now. So I go, who are these people? Do they left their family homes, their kids, what they want to? So I try to really feel how they feel right now. I try to feel their hopes, desires. I try to feel their pain, their frustrations, because if I come with the understanding about who they are and how they're feeling, I'm going to be able to relate to them. And then the third thing, so certainty, one leg of my triangle here, empathy, and then my third one is love. I personally believe that love is the strongest force you have. So I think about loving memories. And when I have this energy, my whole body, I look at the audience in silence. I don't say out loud, and I go, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. I'm sending love to everybody, as many people as I can. Now, if there's 30 people in the room is easy, it's 3,000, it's kind of hard, but I go, I love, I love, I love. Because even though I don't know them, I feel like if I love them as a human being, if I have empathy for their challenges and hope desires, and if I show up certain, man, I have this mindset that is like unstoppable. And I'm telling you, there's one thing about me that I'm proud of as a speaker. I am extremely consistent. There's a lot of things that I don't do right in my business that I'm always trying to elevate. But one thing that I'm proud of it, I am consistent on how I show up to my events, and the reason is because I have this routine that I go in before. So here's some things. That's some things that I do. I do more stuff, but here's some of the elements that I do.
Nice. So just to wrap that up, energizing yourself and getting yourself, from what I was hearing, you're talking really about rapport building and more energetic rapport building. But in terms of building yourself up to that level of energy that I think you naturally kind of have. And, I've certainly heard a couple of your students and speak, and I think they as well naturally have it. But if you're not naturally animated and naturally, energetic with respect to getting into that peak state, I think Tony Robbins obviously talked about it. What, in addition to anchoring, what can someone do to tap into that?
So you got to be careful when we have to be careful when you talk about like energetic, because I have a lot of clients who are super, super, super introverted, and when they go on the stage, they kill it, they crush it. I mean, they're like insane good. I'm like, how? It's almost like they're hanging out 5 people, they're quiet, they don't want to talk, they feel uncomfortable. They go on stage, man, they became these maniacs. I'm like, How is that possible? So I feel, but they're really being themselves. They're not trying to be, you know, there's like, dude, some things that work for me might not work for someone else out there. So I want to be careful to make sure you do that. I feel like if you go down to questions and ask yourself, what do I love about my audience? Why is it important for them to get this message right now? Why? What do I love about them? What do I respect about them? Why this is I always talk about life and death, you know, as far as my message, because I work with so many 31 industry mark, and sometimes I see people who, because they were not in state, because they deliver the message powerfully, someone in the audience is struggling. They could save someone, they really could, and now they didn't because that presenter, he or she, wasn't effective. So I'm like, it's just kind of like, it's a mental construct. It's not much about yelling or doing. It's more about like, man, this is like, I have one shot here. I just have one, and I'm gonna go in and respectfully, elegantly, persuasively, I'll do everything I can to move this audience up, because as long as I can help them, you know. I was watching one more thing here that I think is important. We talk about to be in that state, and I was watching one of the. Want to make another reference here, LeBron James, right? So I was watching one of his videos now, NBA final, and reporters were asking him, "Hey man, do you feel a lot of pressure? What happens if you don't win the title again? What happens if you lose again? You're getting old." All these questions. Is this causing you excess stress? And he said this. He said, "Look, not at all. I just stay true to the game, and I live with the results." And I'm like, man, that's so good, because he is true to the game, and whatever happens, happens. He's okay with it. And I realized that in life, a lot of people, they always complain about the economy or the job or the lack of money or the health or the access, and that they cannot, in other words, they cannot live with the results. Why? Because they were not true to the game. They're not true to the game of prospecting. They're not true to the game of investing in relationships. They're not true to the game of investing in health. So when it comes to putting myself in that powerful mindset and speak, I want to be true to the game of speaking. So what I do, I stop. I'm like, man, what is for real? What is the danger, cost, and consequence people don't get that? What's the impacts that they're going to have in their kids by not understanding my message, whatever your message is? So just by thinking about that and being so certain, I put myself in that state, you know, in a natural state, not a fake state, in a natural state, you know, that I think sometimes we all have that state in us of certainty, of passion, of purpose, we all have it. And just because sometimes when we're about to speak, we don't use it because we're in the state of fear, uncertainty, crowd validation. We're asking for validation. We're asking for all these things. That's why we cannot tap on those resources, because other resources are being used. That's why.
Yeah. One thing that rings to mind is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I've quoted this before, I think, in multiple interviews, but I think it's so valuable and relevant. Pretty much always, he says, "Don't listen to the naysayers." And I think, you know, a year from now there'll be a ton of negative comments on this video, just like any other one.
Yeah.
And
sure.
You know, because it's easy to, as colloquially we say, it's easy to hate, and it's easy to make a negative statement or comment. But if you're sitting there, you know, open to all that, you're gonna find it a hard time to move forward. So, stories. You've already told 3, and You know,
Oh, you're counting them, huh? You'll be like, counting 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
I'm NLPing you back.
I know.
So what can someone that, you know, can you briefly talk about the power of a story and the need for it to be embedded within your talk? And secondly, can you give a practical sort of a 1, 2, 3 into how to craft a story that is relevant and impactful?
Yeah. So the ideal storytelling, so I think the most powerful thing that I can tell you is this, is that stories come before language. And just stop and think about that. I know it's simple. Stories come before language. So before you learn how to talk, how to speak, how to write, your brain is thinking in terms of stories. Right? Psychologists tell us that the reason a baby learns how to communicate is because the baby is recording a story in their head, his head or her head, and then develop language to communicate that story. All right? Let's say written communication has been around for 5,000 years, let's say the length of my hand. Oral communication, storytelling, 100,000 years, right? So it's kind of like storytelling was how traditions, I'm sorry, how, you see, just said something wrong, right? Storytelling was how communities communicate traditions, right? And in the past, they didn't know how to write, so storytelling was as a oral tradition, as a way to pass knowledge to other generations. There's all kinds of study on why storytelling works. One of them is because you can argue facts, you can argue statistics, you cannot argue my personal experience, you know? So that's why storytelling is so powerful. When I started my career back in 2002, I made a decision. I'm gonna be the best speaker I can possibly be. No, I'm gonna have an accent, but within my resources, I would never stop studying, and I never still study nowadays. I'm a student first. And one of the things that I started studying about communication, I noticed that the guys that I was following at the time, they were using storytelling after storytelling after storytelling. And I remember one time I bought an audiobook from Zig Ziglar, was an hour and 15 minutes, and I sit down and I count how many stories he was telling in an hour and 15. It was like something almost like 30 stories. I'm like, that's insane. And then I bought at that time like 20 books on storytelling. I read them all, and I hired a storytelling coach just to help me out with storytelling. And I went through this journey, and it has been probably life-changing for me, career-changing, because I rely on this tool a lot. So the one thing that you want to do as an entrepreneur, regardless of your field, if you're like me, I have an MBA in marketing. An MBA, I never learned about storytelling. And we think that business is all left brain. The truth is that you're speaking to a human, and human, they are moved by storytelling. So what you want to do, and here's the how-to application of this, Mark, you asked me. I want you to stop and write down the top 3 to 5 problems that you solve. All right? So that's step number 1. Number 2, you are going to find one story, one client or patient that you helped per problem. So let's say, for example, in my case here, I want to give an example. I help someone overcome fear of speaking, and I help someone to organize a talk. So I have 2 things, right? Overcoming fear is one problem. Second problem, how to organize a talk. So now I'm going to have one story per problem. And that story is going to be formatted like this. Past, I'll be talking about the problem. During, the process. After, the result. Right? Or the future. So before, during, after, or past, the process, result. And then let's say I am having a conversation with client A or prospective client A, He said, Roberto, you know, I have this big fear of speaking. And after I build up rapport and I ask questions and understand the situation, which story do you think I'm gonna bring? I'm gonna bring this my public speaking, you know, overcome public speaking fear story. When I use that story, let's say I'm talking to an advanced professional, say, Roberto, I've been speaking for 10, 20 years. Like I talked today with a guy speaking for 20 years. He said, man, I want to be better. You know, does 50 talks a year, 20 years in the dental industry. I want to become better. So for this person, I'm not going to bring my overcoming fear public speaking story. I'm going to bring, hey man, for advanced speakers, I have something called presentation structure. Let me tell a story. So tell a story about a guy who was advanced before, during, and after the results he got. And now that person or my audience can relate. Now, when it comes to a structured story, there's 3 stories, influenceology, that we teach in our classes. That was one. It's called client story or patient story. Right? That you're going to tell. The second story is your personal story, which I'm not going to get into it right now because I'll need like 2 hours to talk about it. And the third one is what I call the Swiss Army knife story, is for everything else that I want to frame or illustrate a point out of the story. So 1 is my client stories, 2, my personal story, how I got in the business, what I'm doing, why I'm there speaking, and the third one, what I call Swiss Army knife story, that because it encompasses everything. Stories about, for example, about company values, company creation, or can be stories to cause people to take action. So I put in that category. And every story has a different process to find stories and has a way to structure. It just goes a little bit beyond our conversation here today. But I would start, and by the way, I'm giving this tip, and 1 out of 100 people do it. The ones who do it, they crush it. Step number 1, find out what kind of problems I solve. Why? Why I want you to do that? Because when you go back to work, guess what? When you go back to your marketplace, those problems are going to show up, right? So you know them in advance. Number 2, get 1 success story per problem. So if you say, Roberto, I solved 10 problems, great. You're going to have how many stories at least? At least 10. And then you're gonna organize them in the past, the problem, during the process, how you help some person, and after the result you got. And then you organize the story in that way. And if you want to get more advanced, there's a couple things you can do. You can overcome objection within the story, right? So you can also do that. Because remember, when facts and arguments and statistics, people can counter argue, storytelling becomes in a bubble, right? It's an experience, almost like protects your content. That's why it's so powerful. And that's why advanced influencers, they usually overcome the objection within the story. It's nested within the story. That's why. Can you hear anybody?
Yeah, just lost audio for a second. So I think I'm remembering I taught an NLP class where the topic was stories, and awesome. these are NLP trained individuals.
Awesome.
And so I started the story out of talking about the man in the village in Italy, and the man was known to all the villagers, and he walked around the streets, and as he always walked around the streets, he had a peg leg, and the peg leg was made out of semolina wheat pasta. And as he went about his day-to-day, and and everyone's nodding along, and they know I'm telling this story and just making stuff up, and they're still following me. And and I'm illustrating the point that the mind has the ability to match the story to what the topic is. And of course, what do? We sit here and we rationalize, and we're going to pepper someone with facts, and and good luck even in a political conversation where facts should be the logical basis and the reasoning behind the
I don't want to. I was just having I don't want to open up this box here, but today I was talking about religion,
Sure.
and then why people do crazy stuff, and I'm like, do you know why people do crazy stuff? And then I was talking to the person because and the person told me the answer, like, isn't that story? I was like, yes, you know, like, isn't they do this crazy stuff because basically they bought into that story. I mean, there's no other way to explain that to people. And then like they gotta change that story, otherwise, you know, anyway. And it's just, by the way, if people think that if they don't like what I said, so I can come in and talk about scientific study. They did because I think about Roberto, religious noise story is different. Well, you gotta get informed. But here's right. So here's another thing. They remember the ER show, the George Clooney.
Sure.
They did a study, but the George Clooney and the ER. What is the show? Yeah, ER. The show wasn't like real doctors, right? They're actors. And in psychology, there's something called transportation, which means that they want to know. They call transportation. It's like when you tell a story, how much you move that person from conscious to being into this place of trance, la la land. And so what they did, they called thousands of people the ER viewers, and to see, is the ER show actually cause behavioral change? And here's a surprise: 33% of the ER viewers, this is a published study, use the ER information to make medical decisions. 33%. Think about that. This is a freaking. It's not real doctors. That's the power of storytelling.
Yeah. So moving along into the topic of transformation, and one of your taglines in how you market your business is, of course, speak to transform.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the need to accept that tagline as the fundamental basis of communication, and how it impacts your students in terms of going from the transformation of being a speaker that's not effective to transforming into a speaker that is effective?
What happened is, I always tell people go to information, they go to Google. People need transformation, they go to you. You know, what happened is that a lot of people, Mark, they have this mindset of sharing information, of like, hey, here's one more book, here's one more book, here's one more book, here's one more piece of information. Obviously, I'm more about, you know, I do a lot of content marketing, so I am about providing information. But I think the difference between speaking to inform and speaking to transform. When you speak to transform, we have this emotional charge, and you understand the consequences. Right? You understand the consequences behind the information, and you have a very clear outcome. And the second thing, that when you speak to transform, you're not much. You don't rely. You not try to cover too much information. You're trying to influence someone to improve their life condition. Because I have a saying that your message starts when your presentation ends. Right? So it's kind of like, I had a doctor that I was coaching one time, and his goal was to do talks to get patients to come to his office. And his whole focus was to share information. He was speaking to inform. And I'm like, man, until someone actually come to office and start the care under you just inform, didn't transform. Transformation happens in your office, not in your talk. And there's a whole shift on how people think. And for me, is I see every speaker opportunity, and I go, how can I help transform this audience right here, right now, right? And move them to a better place from point A to point B, and then to start the path, the journey with me. So I feel like speaking to inform also helps you expand your identity, goes beyond I'm just providing information. I am an influencer. I am a rhetor. I am a master communicator. I'm a life-changing. I'm a storyteller. It goes expand who you are, because a lot of people go to trainings, Mark, and they stay in the realm of skill sets. They know how to open, know how to frame, how to tell a story, but they never really launch their path as a communicator, as an influencer, as a master communicator or advocate, is because they don't make this identity expansion, you know, how they see themselves. And I think that when you stop speaking to inform and you start speaking to transform, then you make this identity shift as well. And now, because you make this identity shift, now going back to your opening question, how do I overcome fear? How do I put myself in that state? Well, that's what we do, because you are an influencer, because you expand who you are, right? You really expand who you are. So those things start coming more naturally to you.
I think a good point of distinction here is you're not saying by any means to make your talk devoid of any information. You're almost saying that it's like salt and pepper. You know, yeah, you can put some information on,
yeah.
But if you put too much on it, you're obviously gonna walk away with a spoiled burrito.
Yeah, here we go. I love that. That's true. That. Are you metaphor selling me now? Are you appealing me now? I love it.
Yeah. Well, I like salt a lot, and sometimes I put too much on. So. Video marketing. You were one of the first people to. You were doing it before it was cool.
Yeah, I know. Like the other day, someone put up a post 2 weeks ago on my Facebook. Hey, look what I found. It's a video almost 6 years old, recorded me doing interview about video marketing, and I'm like so excited about video marketing, pushing, and I never stop. My goal is to do one every week. Now, some weeks I don't do it. No, to be fair, because craziness of life, everybody goes through crazy periods, but I'm very consistent. And video, what does for me and what has done for our company, has allowed to get our message to a lot of people. We have audiences, I mean, literally all over the world. When you sell products online, you see orders from Italy, from Greece, from Iceland. I've never been to Iceland. You know, I'd love to go to Iceland. But how does people find us? It's just because, you know, YouTube. And YouTube, I love YouTube. Love YouTube. And for me now, I'm at a point, Mark, that for me, when I don't record video bugs me. Like, it's weird. In the beginning, I had to like get myself into the program, my mindset. Now, if let's say I recorded video last week, I haven't recorded video this week. I haven't. I block Friday, I'm gonna record a bunch of videos. But now I'm like, bugs me. Why? Because my purpose to have this message, I mean, I have ideas when I come out, and I'll tell you, every single video record, something good happens. I didn't say I got a new client. I didn't say I make more money every single video. I say every time I record a video, something good happens. Sometimes it's a speaking gig. Sometimes it's a client. Sometimes, hey man, I like it. Sometimes I thank you so much. Sometimes like someone that I haven't reached, that I got a phone call the other day. I posted a video 5 years ago. I sent my other video and I just want to say hi, I miss you. Like, and I always try to provide value, speak to transform, be myself, and everybody will tell you. You know, the cool thing about video marketing is that everybody who does video marketing for a long time, they're gonna give their own secret sauce. You know, there'll be their own strategy or what works for me. The cool thing about video is that there is no secret sauce. The cool thing about video is that the number one secret sauce is being you and have number two being have a purpose that you want to share your message. Number three is that consistency and working your message supersedes everything, any SEO, anything, because there's no trick for the power of sharing your message and creating a fan, because they like it, they like you, they like who you are. So I decided for my videos, I personally decided long ago, I decided, man, if I'm running the beach and I get this idea, I'm gonna record one right there. If I'm like, and I do, if you go watch Influenceology, some are good videos, some are okay videos, some are terrible, but that becomes part of an extension. I'm not this person on stage or this person video, and I'm gonna have a call from a different person. That's, if you like the videos, you're gonna like Roberto. If you don't like it, man, don't come to my class, because I won't be different. I'll be that guy. Would be, see that, and I'm totally fine with that. And I think people gotta be fine with that too, because sometimes they compare themselves with other professionals, or people have a big studio, a big budget, or and they never pull the plug, never. So.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the whole video marketing. Obviously, there's a strategy, and there's your message and how you construct it. But just like you said, it's a matter of showing up, and the person that shows up the most is statistically going to be in the best position to win. I'm learning how to play soccer right now, and of course I go onto YouTube, because you can learn how to do anything there. And the guy who comes up the most is the guy with the most videos. He's got like 200 videos, this Canadian guy, and you know, his videos come up every, you know, I watch a few minutes a day, and just like clockwork, you know, he's made a best practice and a habit and a habitual practice of putting it out there. So, you know, like
it's crazy when I was it's crazy how when I go to someone else's events and people come to me, hey man, I saw it for the first time on video, that's why I came here. It's insane. And I don't say that to brag. It's just because, like for example, the cool thing about video, YouTube specifically, there's YouTube, there's, you know, Facebook, there's other platforms. YouTube allows to give you the watch time of your videos. And I'm nothing compared to the big players. But I want to let you know that, like, compared to the big guys, there's like some massive traffic, right? But my little channel, every month, the watch time is around 10 days. And I'm thinking, my little videos, the time that's spent watching equals 10 days. And I said, I record 2 5-minute videos. How is that possible? Well, because they're watching the previous videos, like you said. I watched the guy's video, the Canadian guy. And it's so, dude, it's so cool when you start, you know, creating this influence and helping people, you know? I just love it, man. I'm a big video advocate. I keep still working on my game, trying to improve it. And now my goal is we have this new project we're doing, Influence Academy, which is going to be recording, you know, all our content, mini courses and stuff. It's going to be all video based, man. So super excited.
Nice. So one last question before we always close with a personal question, which we'll get to. But let's talk about criteria and hitting the bullseye. And I know this is obviously a big part of your training. So, you know, share with us what you're comfortable sharing with us. You know, an NLP criteria obviously is the most fundamental part of being a human being that impacts your decision-making process. Can you talk about, you know, how you train and coach your students in your trainings to better, for lack of a better word, hit the bullseye?
Well, everybody, like, I can give you an example about a client that started working with me yesterday. After I built up a rapport, I said, man, look, if you had a magical one and if you want to achieve these 5 outcomes, what would that be? They told me, you know, this outcome, this outcome, this outcomes, outcomes. And then I said, like, what's important to you about achieving? And then I went to this outcome. What's important about why? And then I went that. And then, like, so ultimately, obviously, is more complex there because there's some language that moving towards and moving away. But then I say, ultimately, when you're doing these things, when you experience these things, what would that mean to you? And I went down that path, and I had 5 criteria. And I said, man, that my coaching is exactly that. I want to help achieve that. Do you want to do this? And it was like, there was such a quick yes. I mean, quick yes. And because you just have to be genuine on how you ask, you have to be you're gonna adopt a attitude of curiosity. You know, how you get curious about what's important to someone, you know, and maybe frame the language so that they feel comfortable about it, you know, to you. But that's how I use criteria. And I use criteria in public speaking too. I use criteria. I go, last month I did 3 talks. I walk in a room, 200 people for 90 minutes, and I didn't have a talk. And people are like, dude, come on. I was like, no. I show up, I open up, told my story, say, look, instead of coming here and give a pitch, I want to know what's really important to you. Not important, what's really important. So please write down what's one thing that is really important to you right now. So I had a magic one, and I did a group criteria, and then I led them to the questions, and then I had them to, obviously I couldn't work with everybody, but they told me, you know, here's my outcome. And then I start, my whole content was about that, that my presentation becomes about their criteria right there. And obviously there's 200 people in the room. I could work with, like, I don't know, 10 people, and the other 190 be like, dude, I want to work with you because I want to give me, you know. So I build up, I set myself up well because I use criterion group as well, which you got to have confidence in the skills, but definitely can do it.
Yeah, so the operative word in NLP, and we use this word NLP, it's just kind of the, you know, to make this relevant is where Roberto has come from. He was Tony Robbins top trainer for 5 years, was it?
6 years.
6 years, okay. Short.
Yeah.
But you know, NLP is the study of human subjectivity and excellence, and taking control of things that you want to take control of, whether it's public speaking, dating, whatever. The point being, the question here in NLP, and this is what I've always thought is criteria is kind of the top of the food chain, and the top of the totem pole, and the bullseye, and what we're aiming for and what we're trying to get through the influence process. So I think that's a relevant place to conclude the business questions.
Yeah.
We always finish our interviews with, and I know you're aligned with this as well, personal development, and not the BS, airy-fairy, non-relevant personal development, but more personal development from how it affects our day-to-day life and how it will spill over into business and spill over into excellence in what we do professionally. So can you give a tip, or even two if you want?
I give one thing that I want everybody to do. Gotta walk my talk, right? So here's my bag. I took a break today. We're in the pool. Today. All right, San Diego can do that. All right, I was studying this one. Persuasive messages. What's your story? And dummies. That was like my thing. All right. So that was my lunch break time today. When I went to the pool, I was like, I want to revisit a couple books because I'm writing out an article on it. And there's one thing that I can tell you is that, which is really life-changing, is creating a habit of reading, you know. And I'm sorry, that's not new tip. That's one. I read every day. And here in this side of my desk, I have the readers, but if you want to read also, okay, you want to read stuff like, for example, I teach public speaking, right? So here's what I got. Yes, I haven't read this one yet. So this one is what? Can you read that, Mark? Hey, Mark, can you read this one? All right. Your audio broke down. But here, making your case, the art of persuading judges. Say, do Roberto, are you a lawyer? No. Why I'm studying that? All right. Then you have a book on old school rhetoric. I haven't read that. Right. So I can go on and on my thing. The books that I just bought it, but I haven't read it. And the reason I share that with you is because I want to inspire to read. Because for me, it's like this. So you have this Bible here. I haven't read either. Didn't have a chance yet. Right. So I mean, you pay $100 for these books. Look how thick it is. Right. This book, right. This persuasion handbook. Good. This guy spent probably there's 30 scientists who spend all their lives. Think about that. All their lives, millions of dollars for $100. I tap into it. So for me, if you don't read about your field, you are nuts. You're crazy. You're committing career suicide. You don't want to make more money. you don't want to help more people. I mean, I know that's the truth. So for me, I am always up in my game, and I read every day. And then when I'm traveling, I carry a book now. I like hard copy, but I know you can do ebook, whatever. And the other thing that I do that I'm like super focused, I use audible.com, you know. I have Audible on my phone, and I have a membership. I pay whatever. I buy 2 books every month. That way I have no excuse. And every time I work out, I go and listen to it. So if there's one thing that if you're not doing it, and if you email me at roberto@influenceology.com, I will send to you, because I have probably 1,000 books in my office, I can send you the top 10 that are going to change your life in persuasion, influence, communication. So the tip of the day is this: you read every day. I go to DMV for real. When I had to go to renew my license, my driver's license, I get excited. Why? Because I'm going to have an hour and a half to read my book now. You're kind of crazy. I get excited. So I'm going to finally I'm going to have an hour to read today. And I go because you got to have the mindset. Otherwise, look, you can become an expert in any field in a year, man. You read like 3 books a month. You read 36 books in any field. By the end of the year, you're like an expert.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I mean, maybe you're asking. You ask for like a no fluff. Yeah, that's a no fluff. That's just like. And I'm telling you, after you pick up one field. And by the way, read stuff that you don't understand too. I don't read this like feel good stuff. I read stuff that like, man, I read a page. I'm like, man, I don't get it. Then I gotta read again. Then my brain hurts to be like, oh, now I get it. Because you don't read stuff just to make you feel good, you know. So read the feel good stuff, but read the stuff that's gonna make you better. That's gonna challenge your thinking. And there's a lot, man. Nowadays. There's so many good books. I'm very careful in recommending my books because I know the stuff that I study, most people don't have the patience to study, to read. But I think reading more speaking and reading have changed my life. So
nice. All right, guys. Well, this was another great call, and you by now have gotten quite a bit of information on influence of self, influence on a one-on-one basis, and then of course of the masses, which is exactly the 3 parts of Roberto's process. And you guys can go, we'll put the link down below. It's influenceology.com. That's influence, and then ology like psychology, OLGY.
Love that, brother.
And there's a ton of information there. They do coaching. They got programs. And, if you're lost on, promoting your business in this day and age, in this new found way of doing things where, brick and mortar is going out of business and is under attack. I saw an ad today for Amazon, 2-hour shipping. So so if you're not taking advantage of both video marketing and persuasion in terms of group and public speaking, you are missing the boat. So go there now. And then of course, if you need funding for your business, credit, and of course the LLC startup, you can reach us at creditpathway.com. And don't let the bank say no to you and your dreams. We are here to help. And that's about it. Signing off. Roberto, thanks for your time. This was awesome.